So what's the difference? Your child is the heir to the demon throne your father-in-law holds, and you're called the Garnet Warrior, a title with huge power and responsibility. Do you realize what that means? It's not just a title, it's your fate, Chance replied, his voice urgent as emotions filled the room. 2 things. First, how was I supposed to know Valentina was a succubus? And second, how could I have guessed I'd become the Garnet Warrior? I couldn't have seen any of this coming, Sevyn said, sounding both defensive and shocked, weighed down by a fate he never wanted. Did you ever think, even for a second, that you just met Valentina by chance? Of course not. She knew who you were long before you knew her. She knew everything about you. Your only role was to fall in love with her, and that's what you did, Chance said, his voice sharp and accusing. That's enough, nephew, Mr. Abgel said, his voice steady but serious, bringing silence to the room. Listen, our main goal is to find Sevyn's child and figure out who is responsible for what happened to Valentina. We need to understand the motive. Who would want to hurt her? La Chapelle mentioned monsters in the demon realm that attacked her, so they're our main suspects for now. Is there anyone else we should watch out for? Maybe some hidden force in that dark place. Papa's right, Pollux agreed, his voice firm as he looked over the crime scene photos on the table. He spread the glossy pictures under a bright lamp, showing every detail. The images showed broken glass on the floor, deep claw marks on the walls, and bloodstains, some splattered, some pooled, telling of the violence that happened. Furniture was overturned, books were torn, and curtains were ripped as if by claws. One photo showed burned footprints on a staircase. Another showed a door barely hanging on its hinges, scratched and damaged. Pollux imagined the rooms smelled of blood and brimstone, a harsh reminder of the horror that had taken place where things once felt normal. I've spent the past year trying to solve the mystery of Valentina's death, Chance said, frowning in concentration. All the evidence points to my partner, Detective Knight. But confronting him is dangerous. If he suspects anything, it could go badly. Detective Knight isn't just a strong ghoul. He has a bad temper and a lot of power at the station. He has many contacts, both inside and outside the department, which makes things harder. Castor, Pollux, Uncle Jar, and Sevyn, I need your help. We have to question one of his associates. I have their mugshots, and I think at least one will talk. They've all been seen meeting with Detective Knight in secret places. Since they're ghouls, it's even more likely they're connected to him, Chance said, looking around the room and trusting his family to help. This case is about more than Valentina. It's about keeping our whole world safe. Let me get this straight, Castor murmured, concern flickering in his eyes like stormlight. We're not here for a massacre, right? No one dies tonight, not if we can help it. Exactly, Chance replied, nodding gravely. We need these ghouls alive. Answers first, experiments later. Whatever you two have in mind, save it for after the interrogation. His tone sharpened, slicing through the room's tension. These aren't ordinary monsters. Stay sharp. One mistake, and the night swallows us whole. Pollux grinned, excitement crackling in his words. Interrogate all the monsters? Now that's a proper adventure. Anticipation danced in his eyes as the investigation became something bigger than fear, a chance to chase legends in the flesh. Smell that? Sevyn whispered, nostrils flaring as brimstone sliced through the air. The warning in his voice was a blade. Demons, lots of them. Get ready. Pollux leaned in, worry creasing his brow as the monitors cast ghostly light across the lobby. On the flickering screens, an angry mob surged closer, their shouts silent but heavy in the air as the alarm pulsed beneath his skin. In the shadows of the ruined buildings, a familiar face flashed, a ghoul from Chance's mugshots, now stalking their doorstep. That one's mine, Mr. Abgel intoned, voice smooth as a whetted blade. I've danced with ghouls before. Let's see if they've learned any new steps. A pack of demons burst from the shadows, shattering glass and sending shards raining across the night. Mr. Abgel, arrayed in battle regalia, stood ready, eyes locking with Sevyn, the Garnet Warrior. Behind him, an arsenal of legendary weapons lined the wall, each blade humming with the ghosts of battles past. The Shadow King's fall, the siege of Crystal City, victories written in steel and blood. Sevyn's gaze swept the weapon wall, a gallery of rune-carved swords, jeweled daggers, pole arms and axes that gleamed in the half-light. His hand hovered over a whip of spiked steel, its blade coiling on black velvet, each barb a promise. The whip's handle, bearing the mark of the Garnet Warrior, fit his grip like an heirloom reclaimed. With a flick, the segments rattled, a predator's purr. This was more than a weapon, it was a legacy, a challenge, a dance with death itself. He glanced over at LaChapelle, golden light flickering over her transforming features as she steeled herself for the storm to come. As LaChapelle's transformation into a human concluded, Mr. Abgel's protector's instinct surged. "Chance, take LaChapelle to the panic room. There's no safety left out here." His voice cracked like thunder, urgency echoing off stone. He watched them vanish, pride and worry warring in his chest as the storm gathered outside. Castor and Pollux slipped through the funeral home's shadows, a two-man phalanx moving in perfect synchrony as they breached the left building. Mr. Abgel followed, every stride a rehearsal of battles won and lost, and the twins' bond blazed bright as they took the lead. Mr. Abgel wheeled to meet the demons massing on the right. Their eyes glinted, claws glistening in anticipation, but he stood his ground, an old lion daring the jackals to try their luck. Sevyn strode into the courtyard, his presence cutting through chaos like a blade. Every move radiated confidence, unsettling the enemy ranks and shifting the balance of the night. For the first time, the Garnet Warrior and the Wu Shang Society fought side by side, myth and legend braided in battle. Together, Sevyn, Castor and Pollux swept the courtyard clean, their teamwork a symphony of violence and valor. The last threat fell, and relief flickered through the darkness, brief as a candle's flame. All eyes turned to Mr. Abgel as he raised his black and gold cane, an unassuming staff hiding a deadly secret. With a practiced twist, the golden handle spun, and a razor-sharp blade sprang free, its glint a promise of violence. Gasps rippled through the room as he revealed the weapon's true nature. Mr. Abgel moved like a storm unleashed, cutting through the demon ranks with surgical precision. Each strike found its mark, carving a path through chaos. Castor, Pollux and Sevyn watched in awe as the tide of battle shifted, power turning on a single blade. "Now, Hugo!" Mr. Abgel thundered, his command slicing through the chaos. A twisted beast, eyes bloodshot, claws like sickles, burst from the shattered window, bellowing its rage. Hugo's headlights blazed, flooding the street with stark light. Then the hearse roared forward, smashing into the creature with a bone-shaking crash. "Did we get it?" Pollux whispered, his voice shaking with fear and disbelief. The group pressed against the window, their faces pale in the headlights, eyes wide and hands trembling as they stared at the aftermath. Each person wondered what darkness might still be waiting below. Sevyn's heart raced as he took a deep breath, wrinkling his nose at the strong smell of sulfur in the air. He felt sure the creature was still alive, its weak body twitching on the ground. "He's still breathing, but barely," he said, watching the figure closely. "When can we get some answers out of it?" he asked, his voice tense but determined. "Don't worry," Mr. Abgel replied, a cold grin on his face. He jumped from the window, his black hat and coat trailing behind him as he landed below. He brushed himself off calmly, then turned to face the ghoul, which lay in a dirty puddle, whimpering. Mr. Abgel quickly took a worn coffin from the back of the hearse. The dark wood was scratched and dull from years of use. He tossed the unconscious creature inside, its frail body slumping against the cold interior as if giving in to despair. The chamber beneath the funeral home was a stark contrast to the quiet world above. The air was thick with stale incense and the smell of old blood. Silence filled the room, broken only by the occasional drip of water. Rusted shackles and chains hung from the brick walls, some still holding scraps of fabric or hair, reminders of those once trapped there. Deep marks and burns scarred the bricks. Faint echoes of suffering seemed to linger in the shadows, filling the room with unease. In the center of the room stood a heavy operating table, carved from dark volcanic stone and stained from years of use. The edges were chipped, as if people had tried to escape. Leather and iron straps hung from the sides, cracked and worn, ready for the next victim. The table seemed to hold a cold, threatening presence, a silent witness to many horrors. Nearby, a large steel rack held rows of medical tools, bone saws, rib spreaders, trephines, and sharp surgical blades. The tools caught the torchlight, their surfaces marked with strange runes and stains that would not come off. Some still had dark residue, showing they had been used recently. The rack was bolted to the floor, as if to keep the instruments from ever leaving the room. The nightmarish scene repulsed Sevyn.